Everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Wednesday. It's April 12th. It's 2022. If you're hanging out with us live on YouTube, it's Tuesday night. What's up, YouTube? Hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday. Joined today by Nick Galaida, the commish. You might know him from Scores and Odds. You might know him from giving out winners over there on Twitter. Nick, what's happening, my friend?
Man, it's baseball season. We have another big slate. All good things happening over here. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I mean, we got some day baseball. We got some night baseball. We're going to focus on the 6-game main slate today's podcast. We will have Grinders live for free over there on the live page on RotoGrinders video page and on YouTube. So check that out tomorrow. They're going to break down the early baseball slate. Like, some of the sites are just kind of doing some weird things with the slates for the early slate, and tournaments kind of all over the place. So I decided we're going to focus on the main slate because we have some big tournaments. And I mean, that's at the end of the day kind of what I chase anyway. So tournament player, you all know that. Burns only 7%. Yeah, I saw that. Richie, I have him. He's actually on my best team. So I'm kind of crossing my fingers, hoping that he has a really big game. I have a team sitting at 133 with Ohtani and Burns going. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. But so again, hope everyone's doing well. We're going to jump in 6-game main slate, starting with Oakland at Baltimore today. We got Waldachuk against Kramer. That's like the best name ever, Ken Waldachuk. What a name. What a name. Welcome. Nick, any thoughts here on Ken Waldachuk? That might be my new favorite baseball name.
It might be your new favorite baseball name. I don't think he's going to be many people's favorite baseball pitcher. He's pretty uninspiring on the mound, especially against righties. He's got some pretty stark splits here early in his career. Much higher fly ball rate against right-handed batters. Hard hit percentage much better for righties than it is for lefties against him. You look at what he did last year. Had a FIP near 5, small-ish sample size against right-handed batters, but about a base runner and a half per inning. I think any of these guys, any of the right-handed bats that we see in the lineup tomorrow against him, probably going to have some good opportunities to get on base, to have some good at bats. 275 opponent batting average against Waldachuk last year for righties. So I think like Mountcastle, any of these guys, I think are probably good targets.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, there's going to be times that I play Waldachuk this season. Baltimore's not one of them. This guy has a big time slider. So grades out as a really above average slider and a really above average changeup with kind of an average fastball. He just hasn't. I mean, it hasn't really translated. Like, this guy, big Yankee prospect. I mean, he's a top 100 prospect in baseball. So, I mean, big swinging strike rates in AA and AAA. It just really hasn't kind of, transformed into the majors yet. But we're gonna talk about this kid a lot this year. This isn't the spot. This is a team that's very hard on lefties. I will say, if they roll out that kind of cupcake lineup that they rolled out against Moeller on Tuesday, I might look at his, fantasy pick'em prop and look at his projections on that, and, potentially look at his strikeout prop here. But I don't think I'm playing him in the DFS streets today. Going to the other side here, we know what we're getting from Dean Kramer. This guy, Dean Kramer, gets a great matchup here going up against Oakland. Dean Kramer's not good. Really low strikeout pitcher. I mean, this lineup is atrocious. It's such a bad lineup. Dean Kramer is 5,500 on DraftKings. Do you have any interest here in Kramer?
I mean, from a value perspective, like if there's hitters that you really, really want to target, good hitters tomorrow, I think maybe you could talk yourself into it a little bit. But like, the early returns on him have just not been worth much. Against the Yankees, 4 earned in 5 innings. Against the Red Sox in his first start, 5 earned in 3 innings. It's a guy I think that Baltimore was hoping to get more out of preseason, and I mean, he's not even giving him many outs right now. Like, I don't see Kramer having an opportunity to get through 6 or 7 innings tomorrow, even against a bad Oakland offense. One thing that Oakland's been doing a relatively good job of is putting the ball in play, and if they can give themselves an opportunity for some fortuitous bounces, especially now with the shift restrictions and things like that. I think there's opportunities for them to have a decent day at the plate with Kremer. So short answer, I would say no. I would probably look other places in the 6-game slate. But again, if you have some hitters, some big name hitters that you really want to fit in here, you might be able to squeak like 5 or 6 innings, a 3-run ball out of them.
Like we're gonna at the end of the day, we're gonna talk about Strider and Gaussman. We'll get there eventually. Like they're just way above everybody else today on this slate. I think like if you're trying to build out some top end stacks, which we don't really have a lot of great top end stacks today, so I don't think at the end of the day we're gonna need to go to Kramer. I mean, he's not a bad option. Like on a 2-pitcher site, he's not the worst option. He's gonna get 90 to 95 pitches if he's pitching well. He's an above average command pitcher. He tends to limit home runs. I mean, it's his biggest downfall is just strikeouts. He's just not a big strikeout guy. But if you look at the Oakland lineup, this is a lineup with a 25.6% K rate since the start of last year against right-handed pitching. So it's hard for me to just ignore how bad this lineup is and just how much like strikeout ability is in this lineup. So I don't know if I need him today. I don't know if I want him today because of the top-end pitchers, but I think if I need to go down in this range, like I'm probably playing him over everyone in this range. Like if I'm going under Strider or potentially Eovaldi, like probably everybody over Eovaldi, I'm playing Kramer just because of the matchup. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. First thoughts here. Let's talk bats. We'll go Oakland first. Anything standing out to you here for Oakland?
No, I think for me personally with Oakland, it's like I know a lot of people don't like Oakland as a team. I find very little value with them as an individual lineup as well. I think with Kremer, if you go and you look at some of his splits last couple of seasons, last year in particular, lefties saw him a little bit better in terms of opponent batting average, about 15 points higher, got on base a little bit more often. I just don't see much here. If we go look at the weather report in Baltimore, there's an opportunity to maybe get a ball out of the park if you're a left-handed hitter. It looks like winds are blowing out about 10 miles an hour to right field tomorrow, at least looking at the forecast that we have right now. So maybe you get a lefty in there. You hope you get a ball in the air, but Oakland is generally a lineup that I avoid for the reasons that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing any lefty here, I mean, I would take the prospect Ryan Nada. He's cheap across the industry. He should hit third or fourth in this lineup. This guy grades out as like a raw power hitter. I mean, we have no idea, but like he's gonna get at bats. He had 20 stolen bases last year in AAA, so like he gives you that stolen base upside with the home run upside. So pretty sure he was in the Dodgers organization.
Yep.
Like started in Toronto, got drafted by Toronto, went to the Dodgers in a trade, and then now he's with Oakland. I don't know if it was just like a signing or if it was a trade or something. But anyway, Ryan Nada would be like a one-off cheap bat on. I mean, that I think you could potentially take some shots on in tournaments. And then on the other side of this game, the Baltimore side, I mean, I have a ton of interest in Baltimore here. I mean, Mountcastle, Rushman, Santander, Hayes. I mean, all these guys are in play. You know, gosh, their numbers aren't great, but you know they're better hitters than what their numbers kind of suggest. What are your thoughts on the Baltimore bats?
The Baltimore bats, I'm always a big fan of lefties in Baltimore. I think since they raised the left field wall in Baltimore, it's done some damage to the right-handed power potential of guys like Mountcastle. I know on Tuesday, Mountcastle drove in a bunch of runs in a home game, so not the best day to be making that example, but tend to favor the lefties. I think a guy like getting Rushman in there tomorrow as well, a switch hitter in that matchup. I think, again, with the wind blowing out, could be a decent spot for him. Also, I know Cedric Mullins is not off to a blistering start, but the stolen base potential there as well. And I like his approach at the plate. I think that's a guy who comes around sooner rather than later, especially with him playing to be a part of Baltimore's future, playing for potentially a new contract with some budding young stars coming up through that system. So I think Mullins gets it going sooner rather than later. So I would take a look at both of them.
All right, we're moving on. We got Boston going into Tampa. I did not realize that Boston's in Tampa already this season. Totally whiffed on that. Should have went and saw a baseball game. But anyway, Sale against Bradley. This game is currently at an 8.5 total. The Rays are a 126 favorite. The Rays off to a scorching start. Are they ever going to lose? Who knows? Let's go. Let's go Chris Sale here first. What are your thoughts on Chris Sale today?
Chris Sale, I've watched both of his first two starts, and I know the immediate reaction to Chris Sale is, when is the last time we've seen him do anything impressive on a mound? He's obviously dealt with a lot of injuries the last couple of seasons, but there's some reasons to be optimistic. I think underlying here, the slider still got great movement on it. He got beat up a little bit in the early innings in that last start against the Detroit Tigers, but then seemed to settle in. I think he's still got the stuff. We've seen him come back a couple of times, and the velo's been pretty good every time he came back. I'm pulling it up right now on Savant, and we're looking at the velo down a little bit in the early portion of this season so far, but he's still been able to miss some bats. The four-seamer, 40% whiff rate so far. The slider, 53.3% whiff rate. The changeup also 40% as well. So that's three pitches right there that can miss some bats. I know the Tampa Bay Rays have obviously gotten off to a really hot start. They've made some organizational changes at the plate in terms of their philosophy. Last year, real big on launch angle, real big on the biomechanic aspects of hitting. This year, much more emphasis on swing decisions, laying off of bad pitches, attacking good pitches. So I think potentially limits Sale's strikeout upside here, but I could talk myself into it. I mean, baseball is one of those games. I mean, there's a reason we don't see teams win 12, 13, 14 games in a row very often. And I think it's one of those spots. Sale needs a bounce back. The Rays they're just due for a rough day. I know they had one run a couple of days ago, but they're just due for a rough day at the plate.
I don't know if Chris Sale is going to be the answer to that question. I will say, like, digging into Chris Sale before we got rolling here, he got a little unlucky in his first start, like we talked about last time out. 571 BABIP, 250 BABIP last time out. I mean, the swinging strike rate is still fantastic for Chris Sale. Like, he's still generating a ton of swinging strikes. It's just my biggest concern with him is command. Like, we're seeing him walk guys at a very high clip, and like, if we go back to like his healthy seasons, his command was one of the biggest things for him. I mean, his slider was really good, but I mean, the command was the big thing. So, I mean, I'm a little concerned. It's kind of baked into the price. The ballpark is great for pitching in Tampa. I mean, I think you could do crazier things on a 6-game slate. So if you want to take some shots on him, go for it. The guy I really want to talk about in this game is Taj Bradley. This is a big time prospect. I was kind of digging in. He made a couple starts in AAA already this season. He really hasn't gone deep into games. So I don't want to necessarily say that he's not fully stretched out. I think he's probably in the 80 to 85 pitch range here. Big time fastball, big time slider, command plus command guy. Top 50 prospect in baseball, top 3 prospect in the Rays organization. Big time strikeout stuff against the Red Sox team that, I mean, so far this season, they don't want to strike out. It's tough to say how that's going to like pan out, but I mean, they've gone from like this power offense to we're going to put the ball in play type of lineup. What are your initial thoughts here on Taj Bradley?
Man, I love Taj Bradley. He's been someone that I've been waiting for him to make his major league debut for a while. You mentioned the deep pitch mix, the plus command. Like, just pulling up some of his stats here from the minor leagues. Obviously, varying level of sample sizes at different stops along the way, but roughly a 30% K rate at multiple different stops. It hasn't had a 10% walk rate over any substantial sample size since rookie ball back in 2018. So I think that's the kind of stuff that translates pretty well to the major leagues when you have a deep pitch mix, when you have the ability to get both righties and lefties out, and obviously missing bats will help any pitcher. If you can make a mistake and potentially get away from it, or if you have some nasty stuff where you can generate some swings and misses out of the strike zone, I think that's always a plus. Digging into his some of his minor league splits, looks like he's been downright unhittable against right-handed batters. He's allowed some traffic at different stops along the way. Lefties seem to see him a little bit better. The platoon split sometimes you see with younger guys, but I think like Justin Turner, obviously we'll need a lineup. But the Bobby Dalbacks, like if there's any right-handed batters in that lineup tomorrow, I'd cross them off of my list for consideration right off the bat. Just looking at some of these splits.
Yeah, I mean, with Duvall going to the IL, he was like the one, like outside of Devers, like the power is just kind of out of this lineup right now. So tournament wise, I think you could definitely take a shot. Richie, I'm guessing 80, 85 if I had to guess pitch count wise. I mean, that's my educated guess from what I, kind of looked up for him to start the season. So I'll go 80 to 85 pitches is my official guess, but it's the Rays and they're very careful. So I mean, it could easily be 70 to 75 pitches, but it's baked into the price, right? He's 4K, his minimum salary on DraftKings. I think FanDuel, you're going to pay up at pitcher on most teams today because of just how good some of the pitchers are on the slate. So I think you're looking more at a guy like Gibson on DK anyway. I think like with Strider and Gausman with their ceilings on the slate, it's just massive. And I don't even know if he's not even on FanDuel from what I'm seeing. So
Not yet.
Yeah, I'm guessing they might add him, but we'll see. All right, let's talk some bats. Any interest here in the Red Sox?
Yeah, I do think if you have an opportunity to get Devers in there without sacrificing elsewhere, I think it makes sense. Again, looking at the splits, AAA 157 whip for Taj Bradley against left-handed batters. Gave up 7 home runs. I know, obviously not the most hitter-friendly confines to be at Tropicana, but I do think if you can get Devers in your lineup without sacrificing elsewhere, that could be a worthwhile spot here.
Yeah, I mean, my only problem with like Boston in general is the two guys you most likely end up on here is Yoshida and Devers, and they're 6,300 and 5K on DraftKings. So like the pricing for the hitters here for the Red Sox, like Devers is 4,300 on FanDuel as well. It's just really hard to end up on him as like a one-off on a 6-game slate where I, want to pay up. Like the guy that I'm paying down for a pitcher is the other guy on the other side of this game. So, all right, let's talk Rays bats against Sale. What are your thoughts here?
Rays bats against Sale. Man, like it, I could be talked into anyone, especially some of these value guys on the Rays. Like there's just so much to like about what the Rays have done as an organization. Again, last year, really striking out a ton, swinging at a lot of bad pitches, trying to get guys to hit home runs that just simply don't hit home runs. And this year, really looking at guys' zone contact rates, chasing a lot less, swinging at more hittable strikes more often, and obviously doing a good amount of damage with them so far. Caveat being that they've faced arguably 3 of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. But going down here, taking a look at guys like Harold Ramirez, 2,800. If you need an outfielder, Manuel Margot, 2,500. Like I think the Rays are always replete with cheap options, whether it's DFS or if you're looking for a sneaky play in like at the actual sports book as well. I think there's lots of opportunities here splits wise against a lefty with Sale that I don't think is ever appropriately priced into the market in these situations.
Yeah, I mean, if you think Sale is going to continue to struggle, I think you have to have interest in a Rosarina, Paradis, Diaz potentially. I don't know if I full stack them here just because of the ballpark, but I mean, I think you could do crazier things on a slate like this. So,
Yeah,
all right.
I was just going to say, like Harold Ramirez last year, 58% better than the league average hitter against left-handed pitching. If you're looking at runs created plus 873 OPS, like you look at some of the guys that are far more expensive. If you're looking for an outfielder, like you just made the point with Devers, I think there's lots of opportunities here looking at the splits data. Like you said, probably not a full stack, but getting 1 or 2 guys in there, and maybe you can pay a premium elsewhere, whether it's at pitcher or one of these other position spots, probably makes sense.
All right, we're cruising along. We got Detroit at Toronto, 8.5 total. The Blue Jays are a 290 favorite in this one. Gausman against Rodriguez. We'll go Rodriguez first. I mean, this is a guy that he's had some tough matchups to start the season, but it doesn't look like everything that we kind of talked about him coming out of spring and not looking dominant in spring has kind of translated to the season. Do you have any interest here in Erod?
Absolutely none. I didn't see any improvement from him in his last start. He's not missing bats right now. If you go look at some of the heat maps with where he's locating or attempting to locate pitches, it doesn't look like he has any idea where things are going. There's just there seems to be no cohesive plan for him on the mound. Obviously, when you're struggling to miss bats and you don't have overpowering stuff, fastball velo that is obviously well slower than the league average. He doesn't have great spin rates, doesn't have great extension, all the things that help you sometimes overcome some of the struggles on the surface. There's just not a lot that I'm looking at here that portends any sort of positive regression whatsoever. I think we're probably going to see more of the same.
He also has to face like one of the toughest lineups in baseball. I mean, that doesn't help. So Kevin Gausman, I mean, listen, we all had interest in Manoah yesterday, and it wasn't the cleanest start ever. I mean, I think that's the nicest way to put it. I mean, we all kind of expected more from Alek Manoah in that game. He didn't. I don't even think he ended up getting the win because I think they scored almost all their runs late in that game anyway. I don't care what Manoah did yesterday. Gausman's a 28% K rate guy. He's a 4% walk rate guy. 3.3 xFIP. Like, there's no way I'm not playing Gausman against Detroit today.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the Detroit's zone contact rates have been terrible. They're helping pitchers out. They're chasing pitches out of the strike zone. When they're getting pitches in the strike zone, they're not making a lot of contact. It's tough to talk yourself into anything remotely positive with the Detroit Tigers right now.
Ain't that the truth? Do you have any interest in the Tigers bats?
Honestly, not really, and especially I think if I'm putting Gausman in my DFS lineup, I don't even want to try to convince myself anywhere in this Detroit lineup to try to even look at any value.
Yeah, I mean, there's just nothing. I know I'm gonna sound like a broken record this season, but Detroit stinks. I mean, Kerry Carpenter is expected to be a really decent prospect. Not in this matchup. Toronto bats. I like the idea of playing Toronto today. It's a smaller slate, so getting exposure to Toronto makes a ton of sense. I mean, we have Atlanta. We'll talk about Atlanta. We'll talk about the Dodgers. As far as just like top end high profile offenses. So I think like a team like Toronto makes a ton of sense on a small slate like this.
Yeah, I like Toronto a lot. I think especially considering the matchup, like there's some targetable guys. Whether you want to pay up and go get a guy like Bo Bichette, or if you want to go wait for a line of him, maybe you get Danny Jansen in there as maybe a value piece. 826 OPS last season against left-handed pitching. I think there's definitely some ways to get Toronto in here. And again, if you're putting the ball in play, good things can happen. Detroit, far from an elite team defensively as well. So you got a guy, Erod's just not missing bats. I think when you have a pitcher who's going to give up a lot of contact, we saw it with the Cubs game, the Seattle in the Chicago game at Wrigley on Tuesday. When guys can put the ball in play and then there's favorable conditions, whether it's the wind or obviously not having the environmental conditions inside in Toronto, but just having an opportunity to put the ball in play against a team that doesn't have a great defense, you're going to find holes. You might get a nice bounce. You might get a guy out of position. I think there's a lot of ways that Toronto's bats can benefit in this spot.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, Toronto moved their fences in, so I mean, it was already a pretty good hitter's ballpark, and it's just gonna play a little bit better as a hitter's ballpark in general. So, all right, Cincinnati at Atlanta, Green and Strider 7.5 total. The Braves a 275 favorites. Hunter Green. I mean, I don't think it's crazy to play some Hunter Green today. Atlanta is a pretty high strikeout team. You also have to understand that, like, if he's not striking guys out, he's giving up hard contact. So that is the huge concern. Fly ball pitcher in Atlanta against a very powerful offense. So I don't know if I end up playing him a lot or if any in DFS, but he's definitely someone that I'll be looking at like his strikeout props today.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and I think Atlanta definitely gives you that upside as a lineup in terms of the swing and miss. I just think for me personally, Hunter Green, that like until he figures out how to get through a lineup more than once effectively, I can't trust him for what the price is. Like I'm looking on FanDuel right now, we got Hunter Green at 8K. I can't get behind it. The guy has a fastball that can reach triple digits. It consistently does a good job overpowering hitters the first time through the lineup. The second time through the lineup, it doesn't move a whole lot. They're major league hitters. They adjust to the slight uptick in speed relative to his peers. They get a lot better at bats against him. They foul off a lot more pitches. Hunter Green, if he's not getting you a substantial amount of points that first time through the order, his K percentage drops off about 10%. Opponent batting average goes way up. He allows a lot more traffic on the bases. And Atlanta's one of those teams. They have multiple guys in that lineup that can win an MVP. And if Hunter Green doesn't get off to a great start for whatever reason, I mean, you're sinking 8K into a guy who might contribute next to nothing in your lineup.
All right, the other side of this game is obviously one of the most talented young pitchers in baseball, Spencer Strider, 38% Ks since the start of last season, just absolutely dominating hitters. 9 strikeouts in each of his first 2 starts. Washington's awful. He dominated them. San Diego's a really solid team. He had an okay start. Well, Cincinnati's not a very good team. There's a ton of strikeouts in the bottom half of this lineup. I mean, him and Gaussman, 1A, 1B today for me. I mean, if you're considering price, maybe Strider a little bit better because he's $800 cheaper on DK, but on FanDuel, I mean, they're basically the same price. So I think they're 1A, 1B over there. They're clearly the top 2 guys today. We'll talk about Clayton Kershaw. He's in a fantastic spot as well. But yeah, I mean, these guys are phenomenal plays.
Yeah, I would lean Gosman more so because of the matchup than anything else. Cincinnati, you're absolutely right. There's a ton of K potential in this lineup, but if we're considering Cincinnati in this spot or Detroit as the offense to fade, if you look at Cincinnati, they've chased the third fewest pitches of any team in the league so far this season. Detroit's chased the third most. You look at swinging strike rates. Again, Strider can overpower anyone. He can make pretty much anyone in the league swing and miss, but Cincinnati's done a much better job. They're 9th in swinging strike rate so far. Detroit is 27th. So I think when you're talking about the upside in DFS, or again, if you're betting at the sports book and you're looking to ladder a K prop or something like that, I think Gosman has the potential to truly just go crazy tomorrow against Detroit. I think Strider probably has a really good game, but I personally I like the upside with Gosman a little bit more.
It's okay. You can have your opinion, but if you want to rock the mustache like Strider and strike people out at a 38% clip, you can do whatever you want. And this team, there's just so many strikeouts. Stevenson, Myers, like Vossler striking out at a huge clip. Like all these guys that they've kind of called up, towards the end of last year, they just all strike out. They just all strike out. Like Friddle is the only guy that doesn't strike out over 20% against right-handed pitching. So, I mean, I listen. I don't have an issue with Gaussman. I'm going to play both of these guys. Like my main lineup is going to start with Gaussman and Strider and go from there. But I mean, they're both fantastic here. So, all right, let's talk bats. I got nothing on Cincy, man. I'm gonna be very very heavy on Strider here, and I'm all about hedging, but not in this spot.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially if you're going with Strider in your lineup. I don't see any reason to hope and pray with Cincinnati. I think if you're investing in Strider, you want all of it. I think there's opportunity probably a lot more on the other side with the Atlanta Braves. I think someone like Matt Olson, an obvious guy, right? He's most expensive first baseman on FanDuel tomorrow, but I think the matchup warrants it, and especially pretty good fastball hitter going against a guy who really only has a fastball and a slider. Second time through the order, Matt Olson has some of the best power potential in all of baseball, and Hunter Green just simply doesn't make guys miss. He doesn't fool guys twice through. So Olson, one of his primary concerns is the fact that he swings and misses a lot. I think he's got a lot of opportunities to put the ball in play. If he doesn't get it the first time through the order, Cincinnati's bullpen doesn't really scare me a lot here either. So I think Matt Olson, I know there's a lot of talented first baseman. I know there's some value down the sheet here, but But I think Matt Olson tomorrow could potentially be very, very much worth the price.
Yeah, we could shift gears to Atlanta. I love Atlanta. I mean, yeah, I think a guy like Hunter Green, if you're wanting to target his downside, it's fly balls and hard contact. Talked about in the expert survey today on RotoGrinders about playing Olson and Riley instead of playing Goldschmidt and Arenado. Looked like a genius until Arenado just hit like a 2 RBI double. It was panning out perfect. But hey, listen, it still worked out. Olson had a great game. So, I mean, Atlanta is definitely like Toronto, Atlanta. They're probably going to end up being my top 2 stacks today. I mean, this is the spot. This is a guy that struggles with fly balls and power. He strikes people out. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, if you're going to go out and you're going to throw 50% fastballs to this Atlanta team, you're going to get smashed. So, and they're a very good hitting slider team. I mean, that's his 2 pitches. So, any other thoughts on Atlanta before we move on?
Nope, we can keep it rolling.
All right, we got Kansas City at Texas. This game has an 8.5 total. The Rangers a 174 favorite. Keller against Eovaldi. Will note that Corey Seager left the game with some hamstring issues. On Tuesday night, he hit a double running from first to second. He kind of came up a little bit, and I would very much be surprised if he's in the lineup for this Wednesday game. I think he's going to miss a couple days. Hopefully it's not too long because he was finally starting to look locked in at the plate, and I think that we kind of want to see that. Let's talk some pitchers here. We'll go Brad Keller first. Keller has been okay to start the year. He's not like this high upside guy. Do you have any interest in Keller?
Maybe depending on a lineup. I know there was a lot of guys talking about his revamped pitch mix before opening day and even after his first start, thinking that they could ladder him and potentially catch the book sleeping. I think there's only so much you can fix with a guy like Brad Keller. And I think what we've seen so far is that they've been able to improve his K percentage against righties. He's struck out 35% of the righties that he's faced so far this season. But against lefties, he's walked more guys than he has struck out so far. And we go look at a Texas lineup that routinely has a fair amount of left-handed batters in the lineup. You just mentioned Seager might not be in there tomorrow, but we still got Lau. We still got probably High might not be in the lineup. We'll see. But Jankowski, Miller, there's going to be a lot of guys in this lineup that I think are just hard for Keller to K. And you can nitpick at Texas's offense. It's certainly not one of the premier elite offenses in the league, but man, I think you're doing some mental gymnastics if you're trying to talk yourself into taking Brad Keller, especially on a day when you have Gausman and Strider and Kershaw available at your disposal.
Yeah, and I mean the guy that should end up playing shortstop is Josh Smith. So I mean he's another lefty. So I mean, yeah, I don't want to play Keller. I don't know how much Texas I'll play either, but I definitely don't want to play the Keller side. And then Eovaldi, I mean, Kansas City is such an interesting offense in general because they are a team that is kind of pesky. Eovaldi is a really solid pitcher on a slate where it's a small slate. I worry about like his overall upside, but I think he's okay. He's not my favorite. He's not the worst. He's kind of okay today.
Yeah, it's worth noting. Again, we're dealing with smallish sample sizes still. We're only about 12 days into the season, about 2 weeks into the season. Kansas City dead last in OPS, 30th to start the year. They're 24th in ISO. So when you're thinking about the run prevention metrics, Eovaldi probably has some upside here. I think the harder part is like when you mentioned pesky, I think of the Royals. They find a way to put balls in play a decent amount. They're 21st in K percentage so far against right-handed pitching. Eovaldi's a guy who he frustrates me because I feel like there's a lot there that has not been unlocked in his MLB career. I feel like he's always just been like one tinker with his pitch mix away from potentially unlocking some stardom, but he doesn't really get guys to chase a whole lot. And when you look at what the Royals have done so far this season, I mean, it's like that's been their main Achilles heel when you're looking at strikeouts. The Royals are 27th in swing percentage on pitches outside the strike zone so far. So if that's Eovaldi's bread and if Eovaldi needs to get strikeouts in this one, it's probably going to be outside the zone. And I don't think that's necessarily Eovaldi's path to getting strikeouts. So I think it limits the upside, but maybe if you overspend other places and you're trying to cut 2,000 in the pitcher department, maybe you talk yourself into Eovaldi.
I will note we saw DeGrom lose a win on Tuesday night. I mean, this bullpen projects as one of the worst bullpens in baseball. We keep talking about it. I feel like every single day, but they're really gonna likely end up as like a bottom 10 bullpen, if not bottom 5, and they're gonna have to make some moves if they want to make a deep run into the playoffs with this team. So, all right, let's talk bats. Anything standing out to you here for Kansas City?
Not in particular. Again, I think the struggles as a whole against right-handed pitching are concerned. Eovaldi is good enough to where I think in DFS, there's not a whole lot of guys in this lineup that I think give you a ton of value. I think you're really just you're picking at the bottom of the barrel with a lot of these guys if you're not going for the more expensive targets near the top of the order. The one opportunity that I think you're probably always going to have against Texas is in the running game. So if you can get Bobby Wood Jr. and not hurt yourself in other spots, I think that makes sense. But I would definitely check a lineup beforehand to see if Heim or someone else is in there and maybe assess at that point. But if not Witt, I probably really have no interest in this lineup.
Vinny P, I mean, he is sort of a ground ball hitter facing a guy that struggles with fly ball pitcher, ground ball hitter, line drives. I mean, so if you want to take a shot on him, I don't hate it, but not going to go out of my way here. The other side of this game, I think Keller's hittable. I mean, he is someone that is not a high strikeout guy. I don't care what his numbers are this season. He doesn't project to be a high strikeout guy. So if you want to take some shots on, I definitely prefer the lefties over the righties here. But if you want to take some shots and roll like a 3-man Texas lefty stack, I don't hate it.
Yep, my thoughts exactly.
All right, we finished it out with the Dodgers and the Giants, like an hour and 40 minutes between games here. Yeah, I love these types of slates. 7.5 total. Dodgers a 176 favorite. We got Kershaw. We got Cobb battling it out here. Clayton Kershaw is 9,900, 91 pitches last time out against Arizona. I mean, he had to face Arizona back-to-back starts. I hate that, for anybody, especially early in the season. It's like you just faced this guy 5 or 6 days ago, and I mean, you're very fresh in how he kind of attacked you. So I think this is a great bounce back spot for him. The Giants have been atrocious against left-handed pitching to start the season. They lead the league in strikeouts, I think, still. 38.7% strikeout rate in 85 at bats for the Giants against left-handed pitching. They're second to last in WRC plus and WOBA. I think Kershaw bounces back with a big game here.
Yeah, you touched on a lot of the important points. The Giants have been abysmal against left-handed pitching. The one thing that I've noticed with the Giants this season is they're a relatively disciplined team at the plate, so they're striking out a lot. And I think there's a lot of people that on a daily basis are looking at how many strikeouts can we get against the San Francisco Giants? I think the perfect pitcher to target against the Giants is someone who has good command, someone who can get strikeouts in the strike zone. You look at Kershaw, 2021, 94th percentile in whiff rate. Last year, 72nd percentile in whiff rate. Off to another pretty good start this season. Obviously, very good command. He's always seems to be 90th percentile plus in walk rate. That's just been a fixture of Kershaw's makeup throughout his career. The Giants will lay off of pitches outside of the strike zone, but Clayton Kershaw doesn't always need you to chase outside of the strike zone to get some swings and misses. The Giants' abysmal zone contact rates to start the season. Looking at their contact percentage on pitches inside the strike zone, they are 29th this season, a whopping 8% behind the team leading the way so far. So I'm with you. I think Kershaw has a big bounce back spot. I hate the hyper proximity matchups that you mentioned. I especially a team like Arizona that I think they're truly pesky. Even more so than the Kansas City Royals at the plate. I think they have a better approach. So that's a tough spot for anyone, Kershaw included. I think this is an amazing get right spot for him on Wednesday.
Yeah, and I mean they had the worst hitters umpire of the slate yesterday, so I'm assuming we won't have back-to-back bad umpires behind the plate. You never know when it comes to that kind of stuff. Alex Cobb on the other side of this game, I mean, listen, the Dodgers lineup is not as good as it has been over the last few years, but I still don't think this is a spot where I'm like itching to get out and play Alex Cobb.
No, I can't. I'm higher on Alex Cobb than I think a lot of people, but the hard thing with backing him is you're not just backing him, you're backing the Giants infield defense. And you would have thought that the Giants would have tried to do something to improve that area of their roster this past winter. They just didn't. I know Carlos Correa was talked about, but obviously that didn't pan out. They're just still terrible. You have a guy who can get a lot of ground balls, and there's just not a lot of guys behind him that can field them and turn them into outs. And I'm with you. I don't even know why somebody would try to convince themselves anything Alex Cobb related on the slate again with the depth of elite pitching that you have with Gausman, Strider, Kershaw, even Eovaldi. Like Eovaldi at 86 versus Cobb at 84 on FanDuel. I think that's a no-brainer to pay the extra 200 and take Eovaldi in that spot.
All right. Bats in this game. Any Dodgers bats standing out to you here?
I mean, I can't be a guest on any show and not mention Mookie Betts. I think Mookie Betts is someone that everyone should appreciate a little bit more. But I think looking down the lineup here, the Dodgers are another team. We talked about the Rays earlier. They're a team that really understands data, really understands how to put a lineup together. I think guys like James Outman or Rojas or Chris Taylor, I think there's a lot of guys down in the lower part of this lineup for the Dodgers that could have some success, especially again, talking about the Giants infield defense. There's balls that these middle infielders just don't get to that end up being singles. They open up stolen base opportunities against whoever's going to catch for the Giants, whether it's Bart or someone else that don't have great pop times. They don't do a good job controlling the running game. So I'm always going to plug Mookie Betts, my guy, my favorite player in the league. But yeah, I think the Dodgers, like you said, not the offense that we saw last season or the year before, but still plenty of pop here, plenty of potential, and maybe at a cheaper price than we got in years past.
Very sad when Mookie left my Red Sox. Very sad. Yeah, I mean, the Dodgers, again, like just kind of looking at the slate overall. I mean, what type of teams can win you a slate? Well, I mean, Toronto, Atlanta, and probably the Dodgers. I mean, this year it's been the Rays. I mean, so don't count out Tampa to win you a slate. But I mean, my main focus on this slate is going to be Toronto, Atlanta, and the Dodgers. Alex Cobb is a solid pitcher, but he's also a ground ball guy, and Mookie and Smith, and I mean, these guys are fly ball hitters. So I think this is an excellent spot. They gave a couple guys a day off. This is a great spot for them to get back in the lineup and have some fun here. Going to the other side, I don't want to pick on Kershaw. There's nobody in this like Giants lineup that I feel great about picking on a lefty anyway. Probably one of the reasons why they've struggled so much against left-handed pitching this season. Is there anything that I'm missing here for the Giants?
No, I think the only guys that would potentially be worth a target, they have way too much swing and miss red flag for me to consider throwing them in. I think Kershaw comes out, he dominates. It's like we talked about the Rays earlier, like their organizational shift at the plate where they're emphasizing better swing decisions and they're taking advantage of more pitches. They're doing more with hittable pitches in the strike zone. The Giants have been the complete opposite. They've been disciplined, but they can't hit those pitches in the strike zone in the same way that some of the better teams in the league can, like the Dodgers, like the Rays. Like it doesn't do them any good that they are disciplined, that they're forcing pitchers to come into the strike zone. 1 through 9, they have extreme propensities for swing and miss, for K potential. It makes every single one of them a major risk, in my opinion, if you're throwing them in a DFS.
All right, so we're going to use DraftKings pricing and scoring for the morning grind game. So I'll give you a second to pull that up because I didn't tell you ahead of time, and that's my bad. We'll jump into that. Just want to say, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind YouTube page. It's fresh. It's new. We're growing it, and I appreciate all of you for helping us grow it. So thank you. Morning Grind game. We're going to get started here. We're going to switch it up a little bit for pitching today because, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. But give me a guy that you think is going to get at least 6 strikeouts today.
Are we still focusing on the late slate here? Yep. At least 6 strikeouts. Gausman. I think Gausman absolutely gets it done.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to go Taj Bradley because I like being different. We all know the answer to this question. So I'm going to go Taj Bradley against the Red Sox. I think he gets some strikeouts today in his debut. Let's go over 7,000 on DraftKings to score under 15 DK points. Who do you think is going to bust today?
Over 7,000 on DraftKings to score. Oh, give me 1 sec to pull this back up. You can go first on this one. Let me pull it back up here. I just accidentally got out of the Wednesday slate.
Oh, you're good. I'm going to go Chris Sale against Tampa. I don't know if Sale is fully right yet. Like you said, I mean, he is missing some bats, but I'm just worried overall about Sale. So I'll go Chris Sale to go under 15 fantasy points over 7K.
I'm gonna go Alex Cobb. I think the Dodgers get to him. I think, like you said, they have the right type of approach at the plate to take advantage of a guy like Cobb. The infield defense, again, major concern. And I know they put Conforto in the outfield. Like that definitely helps, but it's not like they're elite in the outfield either. There's so much space in that ballpark. I think there's plenty of opportunities for them to get to him. And yeah, Alex Cobb is my guy.
All right, we're gonna go for a home run today. Give me a guy over 4,000. So really, any of the expensive guys to hit a home run today.
Over 4,000 to hit a home run. Let's go with. I'm gonna go Rafi Devers.
All right. I'm going to go Matt Olson against Green. I like the Atlanta home run prospects today. They're definitely a team to be stacking. Give me a guy under 4,000 that's going to get 2 hits. Could be 2 singles, could be a home run. You never know. Give me a guy that you think is going to get 2 hits today.
Gonna get 2 hits. I'm going to go Manuel Margot.
I'm going to go way down today. This guy had a 2-hit game today, I'm pretty sure. Give me Eddie Rosario for 2 singles, but he's 2,400, so he's going to be a guy that we're looking at to save some money in our Brave stacks today. So finishing it out, give me a stack to score 6 or more runs.
I hope I'm not stealing. I hope I'm not stealing your guys, but I think I'm going to Atlanta. Let's go Olson.
Just a stack. No. You just Atlanta's fine. No,
Atlanta,
just a team. Yep, just a team. Yeah, man. I think. I mean, I'm leaning the Blue Jays. I really like the Blue Jays today. I think this is a great spot against Eduardo Rodriguez. If he struggles with command again, I think this is a great spot for Toronto. So I'll be trying to mess around, building out like a 4-4 Toronto Atlanta stack and seeing what I can do with pitching if I can find some cheap bats to plug in those stacks. But I mean, I think that's definitely a way to go on today's slate. Nick, thanks for hanging out, man. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I mean, I appreciate you having me on. Always good to work with new guys over at RotoGrinders, and just grateful for the opportunity to talk baseball, man. Always good to be talking about this game, whether it's April, May, June, October. Always just a good time getting on, chopping it up.
I hope you know I'm not a new guy.
No, but we haven't done a show before. But we haven't.
I have gray in my hair from how much I've worked for this company. So you're the new guy. So thank you, chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back tomorrow, Thursday, talking some more baseball. Have a fantastic Wednesday. We'll see you then.
See you guys.